All right, let's dive into a story that's fit for a king, or maybe more accurately.
The Sons of a King.
Yeah, the sons of a king.
Yeah.
Imagine you've built an empire, secured your legacy, you're on top of the world, only to be betrayed by each and every one of your children. That's the drama we're unpacking today as we explore the life of Henry II.
Oh, yeah.
We've got some great excerpts from the Gone Medieval podcast to guide us, so get ready for a wild ride through medieval politics, ambition, and some truly epic family feuds.
It's a story that really grabs you, isn't it? And what makes it even more captivating is that Henry's story isn't just about betrayal, it's a study in how power can be both earned and lost.
Yeah,
This was a man born into a lineage that practically guaranteed greatness.
right.
Grandson of a king of England, descendant of William the Conqueror, even Alfred the Great. Talk about pressure. You can almost imagine him as a child hearing these tales of his ancestors and dreaming of his own legacy.
It's like he was destined for greatness,
Right.
but it wasn't just handed to him.
Nah.
He had to fight for it.
Absolutely.
At just 9 years old, he's thrown into the chaotic world of English politics, sent by his mother to support her claim to the throne. And by 14, he's leading an invasion. Full of ambition, but ultimately unsuccessful.
Exactly. Those early challenges really shaped him.
Yeah.
That failed invasion, for instance. It could have crushed a lesser man, but Henry learned from it. He honed his military skills, his political savvy, and by 19, he'd successfully claimed the English throne, launching the Plantagenet dynasty.
It's amazing how he turned those early setbacks into fuel for his ambition, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he wasn't just about brute force.
No.
He was a brilliant strategist, a master at playing the long game.
Absolutely. And you see that strategic genius in the way he built his empire.
Yeah.
Think about this. By marrying Eleanor of Aquitaine, he didn't just gain a powerful wife, he gained control of a huge chunk of modern-day France,
Wow.
outmaneuvering his rivals and expanding his empire without even a battle.
Yeah.
That's what we call a power move.
It's mind-boggling how much territory he controlled. We're talking about an empire that stretched from Scotland to the Pyrenees. And you're telling me this was all under the banner of the Angevin Empire.
That's right. The Angevin Empire, named after Henry's ancestral lands in Anjou, was this massive patchwork of territories. Imagine trying to manage a kingdom where your vassals spoke different languages, had their own laws, their own ambitions.
Yeah.
Talk about a headache.
It must have taken incredible skill to hold it all together.
Yeah.
And you know what's fascinating to me? He wasn't afraid to delegate. He relied heavily on his mother, Empress Matilda, and of course his wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, to govern different parts of the realm.
And that delegation speaks volumes about his leadership style.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't about micromanaging, it was about trusting others to contribute their expertise.
Right.
He understood that to rule effectively, you need to build a strong team, even if that team includes your own mother and a wife known for her own political acumen.
He was clearly a man of many talents. But here's something I find interesting. Alongside all this serious empire building, Henry also had a more human side.
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't just a stern, all-powerful ruler. In fact, his favorite court entertainer was a flatulist named Roland the Farter.
Wait, what? A flatulist?
Actually.
You're telling me this powerful king had a professional farter on his payroll? I'd love to know what kind of jokes were popular back then.
It's a reminder, isn't it, that even these larger-than-life historical figures had their quirks, their sense of humor. But let's not forget the drama that unfolded with the church. This is where Henry's ambition really started to backfire.
Ah, yes, the Thomas Becket saga.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting. Wouldn't you say Henry, thinking he's playing 4D chess, appoints his friend and Chancellor Thomas Becket as the Archbishop of Canterbury, assuming this will give him control over the church?
And it was such a miscalculation, wasn't it? Becket, instead of becoming Henry's puppet, turned into a staunch defender of the church's authority, constantly pushing back against Henry's attempts to increase royal power. Their conflict escalated to the point that Becket was exiled and then tragically murdered by knights who misinterpreted Henry's frustration as an order to kill.
It's almost ironic, Henry. This brilliant strategist completely misjudged Becket.
Yeah.
And ended up creating his own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And the consequences were immense. His reputation was tarnished, rebellion sparked. It really shows how even a king as powerful as Henry wasn't above the law or public opinion.
What's particularly intriguing is that despite being forgiven by the Pope, the Becket incident really cast a shadow over his reign. It's almost a turning point where the cracks in his seemingly unshakable power start to show. But the real heartbreak, the real betrayal, comes from his own family.
Right, his sons.
Yeah.
We know that's coming. And I have to ask, what led to this Shakespearean-level family drama?
Well, each of his sons, fueled by their own ambition and encouraged by rivals like the French king, became a thorn in Henry's side. And you have to understand, the French kings, particularly Louis VII, saw Henry's sons as pawns in their game to weaken the Angevin Empire. It's a classic case of divide and conquer, playing on those family tensions to destabilize a rival. And they were successful, weren't they? Henry's eldest son, Henry the Young King, repeatedly rebelled, convinced that his father should step aside after his coronation.
Oh.
Then there's Richard and Geoffrey adding to the chaos by siding with their brother in various uprisings. Can you imagine the turmoil, the heartbreak of having your own children turn against you like that?
It's hard to fathom, isn't it?
Yeah.
You build this incredible empire, you secure your legacy, and then your own flesh and blood become your greatest enemies.
It's true.
It's a story that could have been ripped from the pages of Shakespeare,
Right.
full of ambition, betrayal, and family drama on an epic scale.
And the tragedy deepens when you consider the death of young Henry. He eventually repented for his actions, and Henry the father was genuinely grieved by his loss. It's a reminder that even amidst these power struggles, there was real love, real pain.
It humanizes Henry, doesn't it? He wasn't just a ruthless king.
No.
He was a father who loved his son despite their tumultuous relationship. But then comes the ultimate betrayal, the one that truly broke him, his youngest son, John.
Discovering that John was involved in the final rebellion led by Richard must have been devastating. To be betrayed by all four of your sons, it's almost unimaginable.
It really makes you wonder about the dynamics of that family, doesn't it? What was it like growing up as a son of Henry II? Were those seeds of rebellion planted early on, or was it the influence of outside forces that pushed them over the edge?
Those are questions historians continue to debate.
Yeah.
But, while we're on the subject of family dynamics, we haven't talked much about Eleanor of Aquitaine. She was an incredible figure in her own right, powerful, intelligent, and a key player in this whole saga.
Right. She often gets portrayed as this damsel in distress, imprisoned by Henry. But the podcast episode challenges that narrative, doesn't it? It suggests that their relationship was far more complex.
Absolutely. They were more partners than anything else, working together to navigate the treacherous waters of medieval politics. They were strategizing, negotiating, and even countering the French king's schemes. Think
Yeah.
of them as a medieval power couple facing challenges both internal and external, from rival kings to their own ambitious sons.
That's a much more interesting way to look at their relationship, wouldn't you say? And it makes you realize that history is rarely black and white.
Right.
It's full of shades of gray,
Nuance.
of motivations and relationships that are often more complicated than they initially appear.
It certainly is. And Henry's story is a prime example of that. He was capable of great things, but also deeply flawed. He could be ruthless and ambitious, but also loving and deeply affected by the betrayals he faced.
He was also incredibly successful for a significant portion of his reign. I mean, he kept this massive, diverse empire together for decades. That's not an easy feat. What were some of the keys to his success?
Well, he was known for his decisive action and his ability to inspire loyalty in his followers. He had a reputation for capturing castles with remarkable speed, establishing a brand of authority and effectiveness that made him a formidable force in medieval Europe.
And he also surrounded himself with talented people, didn't he? At least initially with people like Thomas Becket. Although, as we know, that relationship didn't exactly end well.
True. The Becket situation is a stark reminder that even the most skilled leaders can make colossal miscalculations. But beyond his political and military achievements, Henry also left a lasting impact on the English legal system.
Oh, right, his legal reforms.
Yeah.
We haven't touched on those yet. I'm curious to hear more about what he accomplished in that area.
Well, this is what's so fascinating about Henry. While all this family drama and political intrigue is going on, he's also busy revolutionizing the English legal system. He introduced things like trial by jury and circuit courts, concepts that would form the basis of English common law for centuries to come.
So while his sons were busy rebelling, he was laying the groundwork for a more just and unified legal system. It's pretty impressive, right? It's a side of him we don't often hear about.
Exactly. It's often overshadowed by the more dramatic aspects of his life. But these legal reforms were a major achievement and a key part of his legacy. And speaking of legacy, we can't forget the Plantagenet dynasty.
Of course, the dynasty that lasted for over 300 years, shaping English history in profound ways. It's a direct result of Henry II's ambition and his success in securing the throne for his lineage. But it also makes you wonder, doesn't it? If his sons hadn't rebelled, if he hadn't faced that ultimate betrayal, how different would history have been? Could the Angevin Empire have endured?
That's a question historians still debate. There are so many what-ifs when it comes to Henry's reign. What if he hadn't clashed with Becket? What if his sons had been more loyal? But the reality is, he did face those challenges, and they ultimately shaped the course of his life and his legacy.
It's fascinating to think about those what-ifs, isn't it? It
Yeah.
really highlights how history is a delicate balance of choices, personalities, and sometimes just plain luck.
Absolutely. And in Henry's case, you have to wonder if his ambition, which drove so much of his success, also contributed to his downfall.
Mm.
Did his desire for control ultimately alienate his sons and create the very conditions that led to their rebellion?
Yeah, it's a question worth pondering for sure.
Yeah.
But even with his tragic ending, it's clear that Henry II left an indelible mark on history. His legal reforms, the establishment of the Plantagenet dynasty, these are legacies that resonated for centuries.
And there's one more aspect of his story that we haven't touched on yet, something that really speaks to his stature and influence on the European stage. He was almost crowned King of Jerusalem.
King of Jerusalem. Wow, I hadn't heard that before. Tell me more.
It's an incredible footnote in his already remarkable life. Imagine King of England and King of Jerusalem. It speaks to his reputation as a strong, capable ruler, someone who commanded respect even beyond the borders of his own empire.
But he turned it down, right?
Yeah.
Why would he pass up such an opportunity?
He did, and it's a decision that has sparked a lot of debate among historians. Some argue it was a missed opportunity, that he could have solidified his power and influence even further. Others believe it was a wise move, that taking on such a distant and volatile kingdom would have stretched his resources too thin and potentially weakened his position back home.
It makes you wonder what his motivations were, doesn't it? What factors did he weigh in making that decision? We can only speculate. But it's a fascinating glimpse into the complexities of leadership, the choices and dilemmas faced by those in power.
It really is, and it reminds us that even with all his power, Henry was still constrained by circumstances, by the realities of medieval politics, and the limitations of his own resources. He wasn't all powerful. He had to make difficult choices, and sometimes those choices meant turning down seemingly incredible opportunities.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Henry II, what's the one thing you think our listeners should take away from his story?
I think it's the importance of understanding history, not just as a series of events, but as a tapestry woven from the lives of real people. People with ambitions, flaws, triumphs, and tragedies. Henry's story is a reminder that power is a double-edged sword, that family ties can be both a source of strength and a point of vulnerability, and that even the most powerful empires can crumble under the weight of betrayal.
Well said. It's a story that continues to fascinate us, to spark debate, and to remind us that history is never truly settled, always open to interpretation and reevaluation. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another journey into the past.
See you then.